Having a continuous glucose monitor, a CGM, can be a lifesaver and it can be an instrumental part of us managing our blood sugars. But if your blood sugar readings are wrong, it can be not only frustrating, but also dangerous. In this video, I'll be showing you how you can determine if your Dexcom is accurate, and if it's not, what you can do to fix it. It might seem straightforward. So if your glucometer and your Dexcom readings aren't the same, it's inaccurate, right? Well, not quite. Your Dexcom, like any other CGM, measures your blood sugars in the fluid underneath your skin, whereas a glucometer measures in your blood. The thing is, the fluid can be 5 to 10 minutes behind what's going on in your bloodstream. That means that your glucometer and your CGM can be showing different blood sugar readings without either of those blood sugar readings being wrong. However, they should be fairly close. And shortly I'll do a deep dive into how close they need to be considered accurate. One situation where the meter reading and the CGM reading might be very different is when blood sugars are changing rapidly. So let's say that your blood sugars are rising quickly while your Dexcom is playing catch up in the sense that it's at 5 to 10 minutes behind, but it also only updates your reading every 5 minutes. But if your blood sugars are stable, you should expect your glucometer reading and your Dexcom reading to be fairly close. Dexcom actually has a rule of thumb as well as a whole chart that you can use to assess whether or not your sensor is accurate. The rule of thumb is that your CGM is considered accurate if it's within 20 milligram per deciliter or 20% of your blood sugar reading. I generally just go by the 20 milligram per deciliter. I guess that's a little easier. So if your meter says 100, a CGM reading between 80 and 120 is then considered accurate. Or if your meter reads 200 milligram per deciliter, a CGM reading of 160 to 240 is considered accurate. That is great and all, but I must admit, I do not accept a 40 milligram per deciliter deviation as accurate. And if I see something like that, I will act and I'll try and fix the sensor. Because if we have a Dexcom, there is something we can do, and that is to calibrate the sensor. My approach to calibration is that I don't act just because I see a single glucometer reading that's more than 20 milligrams per deciliter different from a CGM. Often, I find that the CGM will correct itself. So I need to see more than one reading that's more than 20 milligrams per deciliter off. And I don't calibrate if my blood sugars are changing quickly, because as we talked about, the fluid is about 5 to 10 minutes behind what's going on in the bloodstream. So I would actually expect my blood sugar readings on my meter and my CGM to be different in a situation like that. But let's say that I've seen several readings where my sensor is significantly off. Well, what I'll do is I'll make sure I'll wash my hands again, make sure they're dry, and I'll do 2 to 3 finger sticks more before calibrating. I'll usually do 2 measurements with my meter, and if they're fairly similar, I'll use those numbers for the calibration. If they're not, and this does happen, it happens that meters don't necessarily give the same readings over and over, so if they're not, I'll do a 3rd measurement. I'm doing all of this because I really want to make sure that I'm feeding my CGM an accurate blood sugar number. I currently use Dexcom G7, so let me show you how to calibrate Dexcom G7. Open up the Dexcom G7 app and click the little plus sign up in the right-hand corner, and it will open up this menu. Here you want to choose blood glucose. So you just press that plus sign here to the right. Okay, we can then lock blood glucose or use as calibration. So we're going to choose use as calibration. I'm going to put in 92. My sensor's not inaccurate right now, but this is my blood sugar. You can read a bit more details here, and then you want to click save. Okay, it's going to explain it to you, click I understand, and then you want to confirm. Just check that you put in the right number. Click confirm, and your calibration is now saved. It won't allow you to do another calibration for a little while, so try and go in again, and here you can see, hey, it has to be another 5 minutes before you can lock another calibration. But this is how you do that. The value won't jump to the calibrated level right away, it will adjust slowly. I know some people do 2 calibrations fairly close to each other to force the sensor to the calibrated level a little faster. I'll usually only do 1 calibration and wait it out, and usually that works. So calibrations generally work really well for me. I've only had 1 sensor that would not accept any form of calibration, And with that one, I had to call Dexcom for a replacement. I don't need to calibrate my sensors that often, and it's not every sensor that needs calibration. But when I do need to calibrate, it's usually in the first 24 or the last 24 hours of the sensor life. I use a meter to measure my blood sugars every few days just to check that the sensor is actually accurate, but it's definitely not an everyday thing. When I first started wearing the Dexcom G7, I did a lot of finger sticks to check the accuracy of the sensor. Check out this video where I did a direct comparison with finger sticks as well as Dexcom G6 to test out the accuracy. I found Dexcom G7 to be pretty accurate, so despite its faults, because there are some and I talk about those in this video, it's still a really solid product. Before you leave, remember to subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications. That way you'll be informed whenever I post new content and you'll never miss a thing. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.